Okay, one of the things I said I was going to do this morning is to grind off the sharp edges and ragged edges on my welding table. But as I slept, I came up with a different idea. This is a bunch of odd silverware that I picked up from estate sales and people gave to me for my welding art. But I'm going to take spoons and I'm going to weld them to the table. I'm actually going to bend it in a little bit. I have to put that in a vise and hammer on it, I guess, so that it slopes over, and that's smooth, of course. And that way the cover will go over those. It's like a shoehorn effect. So I'll see how that goes. And here I am fumbling around like I'm lost. The problem, I have so little space. I had two other tables, but they take up so much room. And now I'm required to cover everything up when I'm not using it. So that was getting to be a huge pain. So now, as you can see, I end up putting things on my welding table that would be better put elsewhere. Um, I'm still trying to come up with a good idea for how to do that. I think I'm going to weld some um, angle iron under the table to have a place to hang more stuff. Right now, the only thing I have hung up on the table is my band saw, and I have a place for the clamps and stuff, but I'm sort of jumping from project to project. On the table there is some of the scrap that I was cleaning up. Okay, so I'm going to try to weld this. Now, here's the ridiculous part of this. In order to use up some E6011 1/8" rods, I'm using these for something that's totally inappropriate for. That particular rod is very aggressive and penetrating, and here I am trying to weld a fork on the edge of my table, and of course what I'm finding out really quick is it's going to burn that no, that's a spoon actually. It's going to burn that up. So I'm running at 100 amps, way too much power here, but I'm trying to make do. And I'm just holding the spoon up against the table by hand. It's not clamped because it's not critical. I'm just using it as a shoehorn, so it doesn't have to be precise. Against all odds, I finally got it tacked on there with that 6011. Anyway, and tacking is really all that's required because it doesn't have much pressure on it. And as you can see there, it sustained being hit with the hammer. Next, I'm going to the other corner, and that side over there is where I have a permanent flat plate that I do a lot of my welding on. And the big problem here is the utensil is going to get in the way of my welding. And I promise I wasn't drinking. But anyway, I gave it a shot. Here again, it's just melting the utensil. And then I decided, really all I've got to do is what I originally set out to do, which is to round off and smooth the corner. Way too hot to hold. See, this is why you should never rely on things you think of in dreams. Because when reality sets in, it's a whole different thing. Well, if a fork won't work, let's try a knife. At least the handle of that knife's thicker and it won't melt away. The other problem I'm running in here too is I'm trying to weld stainless steel to steel. Not going very well. Duh. See, this is actually a comedy routine for all of you seasoned and experienced welders to maybe get a laugh. For you newbies, I'm just showing you're not alone. Okay, back to plan A. Let's just grind this thing off. All I want it to do is not catch on the tarp when I'm trying to put the tarp over the top of the table. Actually, if I had been successful in welding those spoons on all four corners, it would have made putting the tarp on easier because you could see all the junk I've got on there. I've got to get the tarp over that, and the spoons would have helped that a good deal. But and I may sometime go back with some polished rebar and angle it and use that. Then I'd have something to weld to something. I'm trying to get as much use out of that cutoff wheel as I can. I've been in the habit usually of changing the cutout wheels probably way too soon. So I want to use this one until it just becomes ineffective or it begins to break up. I mean, they're not expensive. Buying them in the quantities I do, they're about 80 cents a piece. But, you know, why not get the best out of it I can? Most use. The far corner is hard to get to, mainly because my welding cart's right up next to it. I could have moved that. But anyway, I went back to the spoon idea and got it tacked on with a 6011 rod, but I needed to give it a little more strength, and I knew if I put that 6011 rod on it again, it was going to melt through. So I'm going to change to 1/16 of an inch 6013. Now and cut the power down to 40 amps. The only problem with that particular rod, and I don't know whether it's who it's made by or if that's just characteristic of a 1/16 rod, but it is one of the hardest rods to start. I think it's the fact that the flux is so thick in relationship to the width of the metal rod. I don't know, maybe that's it, but when I get rid of those, I'm not going to buy any more 1/16 inch rods. Knock on wood. You know, I watch a lot of these um, welding videos, and the people have all kinds of flat plate and angle iron and solid bar and everything. Well, I don't have that. Just what little bit of virgin steel I have on hand cost me about $300, and that mostly consists of 1 by 2 inch tube and some angle iron. Plus, if I had the money to buy all those nice contraptions, tools, I wouldn't have a place to put them. So maybe I'm trying in these videos to point out that you can do a lot with nothing. We'll see. So finally I'm changing to 1/16 6030. I'm sorry, 6013, and lowering the power. See if I can get this thing wrapped up. on the chance that it might start better with the ground closer to the area I'm trying to weld. I'm moving the ground. Don't really think it made much difference. It's just that particular rod. I have no problem at all starting the 1/8 inch. But you'll notice I have to hit the rod several times because the wire is so thin it melts up in the flux. So I have to break off the flux to expose the wire enough to get the blooming spark started. Believe it or not, it is going on easier. It's still a chore. And the fact that I can't walk easily around the entire thing makes it more difficult. And I've decided something needs to be ground down over there on the other side to make it smoother yet. I needed to smooth that weld that I did on the spoon because it's of no effect if the weld itself has burrs. So I'm filing those off. So cut him off with a cut-off saw. And it was quite a bit to cut off, as you can tell from the length of this thing. I think I'm going to move my welding table out some closer to the barrier just to make it easier to walk around. What you cannot see is the floor where I've got power cables and compressor cables and stuff I'm having to step over. Plus I have a shelf nearby that's got a tarp over it, and I'm stepping on part of the tarp. So this is not ideal.